So, Wei,
Hi, Janet.
you and I first met, I think it was about 6 years ago. This is before Alibaba went to IPO, had its IPO, before Alibaba Pictures was formed. I was running around, I was tailing Jack Ma for a while, and he said, oh, you have to meet so-and-so and so-and-so. I met a lot of the co-founders, so he said, but you really have to meet Wei Zhang. Now I know why. But there was no Alibaba Pictures then. Tell us how it emerged. What were the origins of deciding to go into content? We've seen other e-commerce companies now do the same in this country.
Right.
Tell us what the process was like for you.
Sure. So most people know Alibaba from our e-commerce service, but we really see ourselves as building the infrastructure for commerce, and that includes not just the physical products, but also digital ones and services. And entertainment is a big consumption category for our consumers. So we have over 700 million consumers on our platform that enjoying our e-commerce services. And then we want to use the technology, the know-how, the market intelligence that we have accumulated over the past 20 years to also bring quality entertainment to our consumers. And on top of that, also, we're a very mission-driven company. You've heard Jack talk about the double H strategy, where we want to focus on health and happiness in the next 10 years, and entertainment is an important way to bring happiness to people.
Yes, he's certainly a very entertaining character, too, and he is sort of a natural on camera. But when you took over for Alibaba Pictures, what were your goal? How did you decide you were going to choose material, or what you were going to make, what you were going to bring into China? How did that, those questions get answered for you, given the background of Alibaba?
Sure. So we see ourselves, as far as Alibaba Pictures is concerned, not as a traditional film studio. Alibaba Pictures is a division of Alibaba Digital Entertainment Group, which is a division of Alibaba Group, right? So we see ourselves really leveraging the ecosystem that we have built over the past 20 years to bring additional value to the entertainment industry, right? And part of our strength is we're one of the few companies that originated in China, but also built a global reputation. So from day one, when we formed Alibaba Pictures, globalization is always part of our core strategy. So we are here, we have an office here in LA. We want to be the gateway from Hollywood to China. And the fact is, Chinese audience love Hollywood movies, right? Most of people in China prefer to watch imported movies in its original language, and then with the subtitles. So we see big opportunities for quality stories to find its way to its audience in China. And we believe we know the Chinese consumers well. And China is a big market. It's difficult to navigate. So we want to be here to be in the same time zone with our partners to help them understand how to navigate through the landscape of the industry in China, and then hopefully help good stories to find its audience.
One of the things we've heard from several panelists this morning is how diverse the taste of the Chinese audience is.
Yes.
So how do you pick the winning horse? It's hard enough as it is, as we were discussing earlier, but now you have an audience whose taste is just growing, expanding by the minute. Absolutely. And there's so many surprises. So you've recently imported quite a few films that did extremely well, but all very, very different. Can you describe?
Sure.
How do you account for that?
Sure. I think about even 6-7 years ago, I would say most of the films exported from here to China are those big tempo movies, right, with big special effects, action sequence. But I think the Chinese audience has been getting more and more sophisticated over the years, and they have developed their taste into different genre of films. So we, of course, work with the big tempo films like the Mission Impossible series to help them market and distribute in China. But at the same time, we also want to bring a diversity of stories to the Chinese audience. So in the past year, we have focused on that, and we have had some great success in China. One of them is the Academy-winning film Green Book that we decided to bring to China. This is part of our ambulance output. And on the surface, that film does not seem very obvious to the Chinese audience, right? It's set on a historical background that the Chinese audience might not be all familiar with. But we really saw that beneath that historical background is a human story, right? It's about two individuals, very different from each other, and then go on a journey together and learn how to embrace each other's differences and build friendship. That theme we feel was very universal in a way, that to audience anywhere around the world. So with that, I think the important point of picking film for China is to find that emotional connection to the audience, right? So we found that films, the central theme of that on friendship, on embracing differences, was something that is very familiar to the Chinese audience. But then we had to work on to help them understand the background, right? And then to sort of, also the film was in the award race at that time. We actually decided to bring the film to China before it had got to all the nominations from the Academy. But we felt that it's important to help them to understand the background of the film a little bit. Even the name of the film, Green Book, right? Why is it called Green Book? We actually contemplated for a while whether or not we should change the Chinese translation of the film to something that is more straightforward. But then we eventually decided we're still going to stay on Green Book, and then rather than change the name, but to offer some sort of a background on why the Green Book is.
What was the translation ultimately? Was it?
It's 绿皮书. It's literal translation, right?
But then you had to really explain.
We had to explain the historical backdrop.
It would not have any resonance right off the bat.
Exactly, because that name of the movie is so important to the story, right? And it's a historical fact, right? So, but then we also felt that we need to build that emotional connection with the audience. So one way to do that is really to find a central theme that the audience can identify with. And then one of the things we found in the movie is that there's that one line in the movie that talk about people are lonely because they're afraid to take the first step. I think many of us feel like that sometimes, how to belong, feeling lonely. So we really emphasized on that one line, and then we actually put that one line on big billboards all over China without even mentioning about the movie. It's basically a person, coming out of the darkness, one individual with this one line. And then we have so many audience commenting that they come out late in the evening from work, and then they see this big billboard right in front of them, and then they just felt that emotional connection right away.
Without even knowing
that
it was connected to the movie.
But that emotional connection is so important. That brought it home for them, right? But then on top of that, we talk about windows, right? So it's important also to pick the right release window for the film in China. We had the film actually have gone through all the processes in 2018, but then we intentionally sort of held it the release date. We wanted to see if we would catch any recognition during the award season. So when the film won a few Golden Globe awards, we announced the film might be coming to China. And then when the Oscar nomination came out, we announced the release date. And then we wanted the release date to be the first Friday after the Oscar award ceremony. And it turned out that our film is the one sort of closest tailing the award ceremony in the history of releasing Academy-winning films in China.
Because you did so much prep work.
We had so much prep work.
Chosen the film. You're saying you chose the film long before it had any Oscar.
Yeah, but we really planned for the release date.
And you were able to plan the release date, which is difficult to do in China often.
It is, but then if with careful planning, and then also we're co-financier of the film, so this is really one of our film as well, right? So the day of the Academy, which is a Sunday night here, we were planning a big event, which is already Monday in China, right? So we planned special screenings. We couldn't get any talents in China because they were all here for the Academy ceremony. But then we had pre-recorded their greetings and everything. We had planned multiple screenings that evening, Monday night. And then, with the release on the Friday, so it actually really was carefully planned ahead of time. Right? And then we also get all the Alibaba businesses in the ecosystem to have some fun, because the film is really fun, right? It's humorous, had great music, and had a lot of food in it. a lot of the Chinese audience actually commented that after watching the movie, they're just so hungry, right? There's the hot dogs, the pizzas, right? The chicken, the soda. So we did a cross promotion with Alibaba, which is one of our top food delivery service in China. So basically, we're offering people that have seen Green Book that they can get 30% off of all the foods they've seen in the film. Right, so it really worked, right?
Definitely, yeah. No, definitely anything with food,
yes.
It helps in China.
Yes.
Were you able to capitalize on the fact that the Oscars had just been?
Absolutely.
Do a lot of people watch the Oscars?
Yes.
This is something as a board member of the Academy I'm particularly interested in. But enough people were watching so that they knew there was another event following that. And of course, there must have been huge tears all over China when it won.
Yes.
Knowing that they could see the movie the next day.
Yes, definitely.
That's brilliant.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody could plan this exactly. It was a combination of the luck with the Academy, but also your really detailed planning in advance. Well, tell us about some of because the 3 movies that I'm aware of, 4 movies actually that I'm aware of that you brought in that have all done spectacularly well. One is A Dog's Purpose, or Dog's Life initially, which had an unfortunate series of events here, which prevented the film from really opening in a proper way.
Right.
But also last year's Oscar for the Best Documentary, Free Solo, with Jimmy Chin and Chai. Yes. And then also, strangely, a Lebanese film that most of you have probably never even heard of. It was the film that was submitted for Best Foreign Film called Capernaum.
That's right.
Talk about each of those, if you would, because each film is so distinct and so different. So there's no cookie cutter marketing plan for them, obviously.
Absolutely. We're very honored and humbled to be able to bring these series of a quality film into China. And you're right, they're also different, right? But then there's a central theme in it that we also focus on, Alibaba as a company, that we really love to bring stories that we call them small, big, positive, meaning, small stories, big, small story, small budget, right? These films are all very small budget, big heart, and a positive impact. And then all these films actually all have that central theme to it, right? So, and then this year we especially had a run with the Academy sort of nominated and winning films, right? So soon after Green Book, we helped Fox market Bohemian Rhapsody in China, which was also really fun because it was been a while since the film was released in the States, but we had this karaoke event where you can come to the theater and sing. The last part of the movie is a concert itself, right? So if you have the lyrics there, you could sing with it, right? You know how Chinese people love karaoke, right? So it was really, really fun. And then afterwards, we picked this little Lebanese Oscar Best Foreign Picture nominated film called Capernaum. This film is a one of a kind, I would say, right? Because this film has not made over $1 million box office anywhere in the world. So we picked it because we felt this is such a heartfelt story about this little boy. Basically, he was born. The family had so many children that the parents neglected him, and he was on his own to find hope for himself, basically, right? So we felt nowadays, especially the millennials in China, the Chinese audience, they're very they have empathy towards things that they feel that they can, sort of pour their heart out to. So we felt that film has so much heart in it that you will connect with our audience. But then again, the film was so small, so you really have to then think about what's the right release strategy for that. We actually was very bold on this one. We released this film head on with Avenger film. Basically, we're in the same release window. And that release window was pretty much preempted by, that great film.
You even get screens for that movie.
Exactly.
How did you convince the exhibitors?
So basically, first there was a Beijing Film Festival in April where we invited the director to go to China and then did a bit of marketing on that. And then soon after that, we have announced that we are going to release the film in China. But then we felt, so Avengers was released during the May Labor Day holiday window. It's a pretty good window in China. But then we felt for Avengers, it's a little bit skewed towards male, right? And then
Laudable.
Right? And then a lot of people prefer to see in the 3D theater, but there are a lot of 2D screens in China, right? And also Capernaum is more a female-oriented film, right? So we felt like it's a holiday weekend. People, of course, will go to see the Avengers, but then, for the 2D films and for the female audience, if they want some drama, some heartfelt story, and Capernaum is also a good choice. So we sort of went into, and then the good thing with Avengers in the market is actually sort of build up the overall market in China. And then that's a film we actually also really worked hard to localize it. And it is a film we actually changed the name, its name in China, in the China market, because Capernaum literally means chaos, actually. And the film, if you see the posters anywhere else in the world, it really represents the state of life that the little boy had experienced. But in China, we felt it is so important to give people hope, not making them feel like they had to see a very sad story during the holidays, right? So we changed the name. Instead of Capernaum Chaos, we changed it to Where's My Home? 何以为家? Where's My Home? Because home is a theme that the audience can all relate to, right? And then we changed the poster to the last shot of the movie, which is the little boy in the bright yellow sweater and smiling, right? This is the only time he smiled in the film, literally. But then it just gave people hope, right? And then we also changed sort of the tagline of the film to I want to sue my parents because they gave birth to me, right? So it's a little bit sort of contrast to the warm tone of the film, right? So that created curiosity, and the film is such good quality. The screenings created word of mouth, and then we localized the name of the film, brought it home to the audience, and then we went with a big window for us. So it ultimately paid off. It made over $53 million box office in China,
really
which is
phenomenal.
Incredible.
It's really phenomenal. I think it sounds like what you're saying, if you tap into the right sentiments for the Chinese audience, they will go. There's so much curiosity and hunger to see all different kinds of films.
Absolutely.
So the numbers can be there.
Yes.
And I do find that with most Chinese films that have done well, there is something that pulls on your heartstrings.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And family, home, food, those are common themes. What about A Dog's Life, which I guess is just a natural
Well, A Dog's Purpose is an interesting story because it's a small film, right? So most people thought it's a sweet film, but more for people to watch at home. But then we, through our understanding of the Chinese consumers, that there are a lot of middle-class Chinese population that they own pets, right? Having pets is a lifestyle, sort of like lifestyle change for the middle-class Chinese consumers. And it's so warm. If you notice the Chinese social applications, anytime there's something related to a pet, it always gets like multiple forwards, right? So we felt there's a connection between human and animal and then the love for that. And also we went into our digital offerings and see if there's any market intelligence that will support that. And the director has done a film called Hachi. I don't even think it was released here in the US theatrically, but that film was based on a true story of a dog in Japan that stayed in the train station after his owner passed away to wait for him to come back. And that film,
years.
For years.
If you haven't, there was a Japanese movie made first, and then they did an American movie. This dog waited for years, if not decades, for his master to come back.
Exactly. It's such a heartwarming story, right? And then under Douban, which is sort of the Chinese like Rotten Tomato like site, that there are over 400,000 comments on Hachi. That it's not just one line like I love the film. It's more like people talk about their life stories, what having pet friendship mean to them, and some of them wish their boyfriends were like have the loyalty of their pets, right? So it's really, really heartwarming. So we brought the film to China. We did a bunch of creative marketing on the film. At one point, we had people that they could bring their dog to walk the red carpet, and then to watch the film together in the movie theater. So you literally have this theater full of people having, the human and the dog. And amazingly,
the dogs get their own seat?
The dog get their own seat, and the pee pad, very important, right? So, but amazingly, we're worried. What about the dogs all start barking at each other? But they watched the entire movie peacefully.
Dogs, wow.
Right? It was just amazing. It's such a special
Nobody
connection.
thought of doing that here.
Amberlin actually said we wish we could do that in the U.S.
Dog's Life ran into trouble here because the human rights group came out and said there was abuse of the dog, but then it turned out to not even be true.
Nothing.
But the movie lost its release here.
Yeah, we canceled our release event.
The premiere.
Yeah.
So this is such an interesting contrast. I have to say for myself too, I'm really glad that the reputation of Chinese people and their relationship to dogs has changed, because I think many of you know what people used to think about Chinese and dogs, right?
Right.
And it's so good to know that Chinese are seen as being animal loving.
Absolutely.
As opposed to animals something else.
Yes. Yes. And then Free Solo, thanks to you that you connected us with the filmmakers, right? So again, this story is amazing.
It is amazing.
It is amazing.
With a very happy ending. You're watching that, it's a white knuckle ride just watching that film.
It's part of a movie I watch like this, right? But it's a film that deserves to be exhibited on the big screen in the theater.
Absolutely.
Right? So to us, it is so important to bring this kind of quality experience to the Chinese audience to experience in the theater. Because we have come a long way from like 10 years ago, maybe 4,000 screens, and then 10 years now, 66,000 screens in China, right? So we want the big screens to be able to showcase the beauty of quality films. So then we brought this film in, and I think the China release is even wider here than here in the U.S. We brought we brought Alexi, we brought Elizabeth.
Oh, Alex went over.
Alex went over. Oh my God, he had so many fans there. And then again, to the millennial, to the young Chinese audience, which in China the core movie audience is younger here than the U.S. Right, 18 to the 28-year-olds. Doing extreme sports, being able to express themselves. It's a new way of life, right? They love the courage, the bravery in the film. So we did this premiere event in this rock climbing field. That was just incredible.
Amazing.
Yes.
And there is a somewhat of a health kick now, I know, going on in China, so
definitely.
That helps too.
Definitely.
So these movies, again, they're so different. We wish here, I remember last year we had Xu Deng over, and a movie like 我不是药神, Dying to Survive, which is very much sort of like a Dallas Buyers Club. It's a movie based on a true story. That kind of movie, no matter how well it's done, would only reach a certain box office here. It would be capped at a certain level. And yet in China, it could be a huge blockbuster. You're taking foreign language movies from countries that in America people probably have never even heard of. Like if you ask people where Lebanon was, they probably couldn't tell you. Or you take documentaries, or you take movies that are considered more family movies like Dog's Life, and you can make big hits out of them. How enviable that is.
We believe that, we have 1.4 billion people in China, right? So I really believe that every story can have its own audience. Right? It's a matter of who they are and have a way to find them. Right? And the Chinese audience are developing their tastes in different genres of films. So there's tremendous opportunity, not just for one genre of film, for different type of stories to be told in China. So we're very excited about that.
We're very excited too, because I think when people see how movies can do elsewhere, and Mike Ellis gave that great talk this morning, maybe it will help spur people on to say, maybe we're missing out, maybe we're a little too narrow-minded in our tastes. I'm looking at the clock, I know you're hungry, but I also feel like since nobody else has had time for questions, I'm going to take one or two at the most, and then we'll let you go eat. If anybody has questions for Zhang Wei, if not, I will, yes.
You're getting a mic. Yeah.
Hi, Julia Pierpont. Very curious to see what you think the co-production landscape is between China and the U.S. at the moment.
Sure. So part of our mission here is, to be it means to be the gateway from Hollywood to China. Is not only helping the imported films, right, to get imported into China, but also hopefully find a way to tell global stories. And co-production is an area that we strongly believe in and want to continue to work on. But the kind of co-production we really want to do is not the simple kind where you stick a Chinese actor or actress into it. We love to develop stories that are organic, that really make sense to have a cross-cultural theme to it. So there are certain films that fit that category, right? I just met with the actress that played the mom in
Diana
Farewell.
Lynn, yes.
Yes.
The mother of Farewell.
The mother of Farewell, right? From what I understand, that is also a co-production film.
Yes.
And then that's a great sort of, cross-cultural film that can be shot in China with great Chinese casts. So I do think, and then there are other stories. People always say, oh, what do you think is a perfect co-production movie? I would say like something like the movie Martian. right? That is about Matt Damon going to space, and then eventually he was able to come home because China abandoned their space mission and went to saved him. But then this really makes sense, right? Because China is one of the few countries in the world that has a space program. Many people thought, oh, there was maybe some thoughts behind it, but they didn't know that in the book itself, because Martian is based on the book, the China sort of part of the story was written in much lengthy sort of a proportion in the book that was very, very organic, right? So I feel it's a story like that, it's perfect to tell a global story with organic Chinese elements in it.